Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's podcast, this beautiful time that we have to connect with you. I'm Kornelia Stephanie, and I'm with my beautiful soul family, Pia and Cullen, and we're coming to you to talk about all things ascension, all things new earth, all things whatever. We were talking about it before we came on the show. Oh my gosh. So here we go. Good morning to you, all of you that are listening out here. And also, I know where Pia and Cullen are, it's evening. So, hello, friends.
Hello, Cornelia, and everyone listening and watching.
It's wonderful to see you. How are you?
We are in the process of whatever comes next. That's about all we can say.
We're in the middle of whatever's happening, and who knows what's happening. I mean, we are ascending. We do know that. However, so many changes are happening. So many things that we talked about before we went live with you. So many physical changes, so many mental changes, so many emotional changes. Everything is moving along, and I think sometimes we don't really know where we are, whether we're in this dimension, another dimension, several dimensions simultaneously. It's very interesting and very unusual at this point.
It's sort of like being in a flux where you don't know how you're going to feel, what you're going to think, what your emotions are going to be, what's going to go on in the world. We actually don't know anything. We're in a place of just, oh my gosh, what's going on? It's true for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's been an incredibly challenging 6 weeks. It's the collective shadow cycle, and then moving forward to where we are now with planetary transits. It's been like, seriously?
All the eclipses that have had a powerful, absolutely powerful effect on us in many, many ways. And then we have some eclipses coming up.
In the spring.
So I'm not sure we'll be finished with the work that we're doing with the prior eclipses, because actually the energy of eclipses can last up to a 6-month period after the eclipse has actually taken place. So
just in time for the next one.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So we're probably going to meld what happened with the two eclipses, the lunar and solar eclipse that we had recently, going into those energies of the new ones that will be happening in approximately 6 months. So interesting.
Yeah, I think that the eclipses in the spring are in Aries and Libra. Is that right? Do you know?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's where we're going to be working.
Yes. Yeah. But here's something really exciting, Cornelia, that I want to share with everybody. Yeah. Venus moves into the phase of rebirth tomorrow and stays there for 9 days, 9 brilliant, beautiful days of rebirth, opening possibilities for us to figure out exactly what do we want to bring forward on this path? What do we want to rebirth? It's just an amazing opportunity for us. It'll be in rebirth until December 22nd, right before the holidays. And there's two, like everything in duality, there's an upside and a downside. The upside of this is that we have the opportunity to become who we truly are, to shed all of the old karmic patterns, all the old emotional baggage, all the triggers, all the old ways of relating. We have the opportunity to shed all of that and to co-create what comes next. The downside of it is that the agenda is simultaneously trying to push for a rebirth of a completely different kind. With the EU passing, the G20 passing into effect the digital passports for Europe that are going to become law, and with Biden signing in the things that he's signing in to take away American freedoms, all of this shows that they are fast trying to connect with rebirthing something totally different than what any of us want. There's one more little piece, and that is that on the 23rd and 24th in America and Australia and Asia, and the 24th and 25th in Europe, the that's Europe and Asia. Asia should be in the second group. Anyway, on those days in that period, we've got absolutely the most peaceful energies coming in that we've had in a really, really long time, right over the holidays, which is a gift. But the downside is if we become complacent during that and forget what's going on, is the perfect opportunity for the agenda to stick its another little leg of its planning into our world. So we have to remain diligent. We have to remain using our will to focus on what we want to rebirth, what we want to create, not just for ourselves individually, but for the world.
You know, you said a lot of things. So
I did. I was on a roll. Couldn't stop.
Yeah, you were totally on a roll. I was like, yeah. So I'm feeling the Venus. I'm feeling the Venus because I feel this level of excitement.
Yes.
I understand there is massive change, massive chaos, intense craziness, and all the things that you're talking about, and so much more, right? Because we're just like on hyper alert. And at the same time, I'm also feeling that rebirth. I'm feeling that excitement. I'm excited for Venus. I'm excited for us. I'm excited for what's being rebirthed in us. I'm feeling that. I'm feeling completely exhausted. It's like, it's like all these different, feelings. It's like, you don't know whether you want to lay down to go to sleep or get stuff done. It's these kinds of things, right? And at the same time, with tuning into, your own greater being, what's unfolding, what's next. There's just there's so much that we're being exposed to. Like Cullen was talking about before we came on, that what we're experiencing right now, hasn't been easy with everything that we're being exposed to. And those of us that have been on this path for a long time and that are witness and observers of the crimes of humanity, also seeing that, being with that, and at the same time giving birth to the new earth, giving birth to what it is that we really want, and staying true to that discipline, and also the responsibility of what is it that we want to create, like what you said, Pia, right? So I brought this morning, I always like to sit down and think about what it is that I want to talk about with you all today. I brought 2 words: boundaries and projections.
Oh, great. Perfect.
So we can unpack that.
Those are 2 very powerful words to unpack. Which one do you want to start with, Kornelia?
Well, the boundaries, let's start with the boundaries. Because that can go into so many different areas. But I think, right? Go ahead.
A good place to start with boundaries is looking at familial relationships and falling into old patterns and not setting boundaries where appropriate because you don't want to rock the boat. And over the holidays, we can become way more complacent with that. So it's the perfect opportunity in this rebirthing energy to set appropriate boundaries. Cullen taught me a long time ago that it's just as divine to say no as it is to say yes. I love that.
I love that.
Wisdom.
That's a meme. We need to put that out on social media. That's it. Exactly that. And Cullen Bird Smith underneath. It says,
okay.
That's what we need to do. It says, what is it? It's just as divine to say no as it is to say yes. Cullen Bird Smith.
Yep.
How about that?
It's an important few words because we're taught by society, we're taught by family, we're taught by religion, always to take care of everyone else first. And that has been such an out of balance way of living our lives because we're always supposed to say yes. When someone asks us something, can you help me do this? Our automatic trained response is to say, yes, of course, I will help you do that. We may be too tired. We may be exhausted from what we're doing in the rest of our lives, or we may be really too busy doing something that might be even more important. And yet there's that lockstep knee-jerk reaction to say, okay, yeah, sure, I will help you with that. And I think what Pia began speaking about is really important about boundaries, because we've got to really change the parameters of who are we taking care of? Are we ever taking care of ourselves, or are we taking care of everyone else first? And the old saying that's been around forever in the spiritual world is, if we don't take care of ourselves and have the energy to be able to do what we need to do, we're not going to be very good. We're not going to be very energized to help anyone else. And it's a tough thing to fight, because it's so ingrained in us to simply agree when we're asked for something.
One way that our Pleiadian friends Larkma have taught us about setting boundaries in place is to recognize that you're not always helping somebody if you do something they ask you to do that's their responsibility and not yours. That doesn't help their soul growth or their evolution. So saying no in a circumstance where somebody is asking for help when it's not your job to fix it or help with it is really important, not only for your own things that Cullen was just talking about, our own boundaries, but also for encouraging other people to step up and take their own responsibility.
We often talk with you, Kornelia, about responsibility. It seems a theme that runs through all of our conversations. And what Pia just said is also very important, because often certain people will ask too often, too much of others. They will say, can you help me do this? I don't know how to do this, or I don't have the money to do this, or I don't have the time to do this. And what we've noticed is that often the people that ask the most are not taking their own personal responsibility. They're shoving it on someone else, either because they're afraid to truly look at why they're not being responsible, or they simply think, well, if I can get someone else to do it, oh boy, I don't have to do it. And that is really not a good exchange of energy. That is really not a fair way of leading one's life in a sense of right livelihood. So I think we have to be really careful of people who completely, honestly take advantage of other people way too often. I think we have to be alert to that kind of relationship that we're often in with others.
I think it goes way back, because you said this has been going on for a long time. It goes back to the Piscean age, that during that time period when, we were meant to, programmed to put our neighbors before ourselves, put someone else before you. And like you said, this ingrained program has been, it's deeply ingrained and has been going on for a long time. So putting yourself first is really we had to put the self back into the equation, the self-love, the self-nurturing, the self-honoring, the self-listening, listening to yourself, honoring yourself, loving yourself, because during that age, during that time period, the self was left out of the equation, right? And now, with this boundary setting, I think it's really important for any person to sit down with themselves and even write out what their boundaries are, because that's really where it begins, your energetic boundaries, so that you know where you are. And then when you're relating with other people, it's much easier for you to communicate your boundaries, because you've identified them within your own self, so that you don't get caught off guard. Because it's like really hard when you're like, it's the natural way is to give, is you want to be able to do things and help other people, but not at the cost where you're sacrificing yourself for it.
Absolutely. Well said, Kornelia. Well said.
And what we're talking about, some people will hear this as being selfish, that if we choose ourselves first, we're not being a good citizen. We're not being altruistic. We're not being what many in in the Christian religion would say, well, I'm not being a good Christian if I don't help everybody else. And it's not a matter of selfishness. It's a matter of balance. It's a matter of what I said earlier. If we don't take care of ourselves, we're not going to have an ounce of energy to take care of anyone else properly. So by taking care of ourselves, it's absolutely an unselfish act, because it's going to help everybody if we're coming from that centered, that energetic point of view. So I think people really have to rethink this ratio or this equation and take the selfishness out of it completely, because it's not relevant. It's just not true.
Yeah, that's exactly, because that's what they're referring back to. So basically, you can just remove that from the vocabulary, the same way that, I've removed the word guilt from my vocabulary. Guilt is not something that I participate in, because my body doesn't like feeling guilt. And it's a useless religious program that was, put upon us, that in order for, uh, you know, um, you're supposed to feel guilty if you're experiencing or putting yourself first, or experiencing pleasure, then you should feel guilty. And then people say, I feel guilty. And then you're programming your body to feel guilty. It's a useless feeling. It's not even an emotion. It's just a word. And I honestly, my body does not like to feel guilty. So why would I even use that word? Why would I even say it? And so this is something that we don't do over here in the New Earth. We don't do guilt.
Well, that is a great part of what our Pleiadian friends Larkma talk about often. Is words are incredibly powerful. And if we use words that make us uncomfortable in the way you just explained beautifully, it's going to have an impact on us that is not a positive impact. It's going to have a negative pulling down of our frequency or our energy, that in these times of doing our best to elevate our energy, elevate our frequency, elevate our vibration, it's absolutely the opposite of what we could be doing or what we might be doing.
There's an extra piece about this and talking about setting boundaries in conjunction with rebirthing ourselves. And that is in relationships. We tend to get in relationships struggles and conflict, dynamic tension, which we push against each other to grow. That's on purpose. However, what Cullen was saying about what Larkma has taught us about choosing your words, because words are powerful, can be extremely harmful or extremely helpful in trying to disentangle that dynamic tension. If you are responding to something you don't like or are frustrated with in a relationship, and you choose words that are harmful, you're harming yourself, you're harming the other person, and you're harming the relationship. If you choose words that are peaceful and kind to express what you need to say, then you're helping yourself, you're helping the other person, you're helping the relationship. So those boundaries need to be in place about ourselves also.
And it also takes less energy. And this is really an important point, I think, that many people don't understand. It takes less energy to be positive because it comes directly from the heart.
Right.
If we're being negative, if we're using harsh words, harmful words, it's coming directly through the mind. And it takes so much energy to keep that mind in that particular frame of reference, in that particular energy. So it's a pretty easy understanding that if we're positive, if we use words that are loving, kind, compassionate, it doesn't take the energy to bring that horrible, negative, dark energy that swirls around the mind that's not communicating in a heart-based fashion. So,
and here's where we have to remember that the emotions are powering the words. So you need to, as Larkma has said many times, take your emotions around the block before you choose what you're going to say. because those emotions are triggers for you to change what you're doing and get you out of a negative space, because emotions are all negative. The distinction between our natural feeling states of the ascension process, love, joy, trust, compassion, patience, generosity, gratitude, those are our natural born qualities of feeling. Emotions are frustration, anger, sadness, all kinds of things that are uncomfortable, dark, and negative. So if we're about to let somebody knows how we feel and is coming from an emotional place, that's the time to put some boundaries around our mouth and to look at what's coming out of it before we cause harm for the relationship or for anybody else, including ourselves.
And that, go ahead, Kornelia. You've got a thought.
Go ahead. I got it still. Go ahead.
Well, it's interesting to me that the quicker we stop ourselves immediately when we think someone has harmed us and we want to say something harsh, something rude, something harmful, the quicker we internally respond to that by not going in that direction, the faster we're going to stop ourselves continually by not using those words or those thoughts. It's really interesting. I've looked at this and watched this for dozens and dozens of years. And if we're really quick at going, oops, I mean internally, not out loud, but internally, oops, I don't think I really want to say that. I think that's going down the wrong path. The quicker, the faster we make that understanding or that judgment, and I mean judgment in a good way here, not in a negative way, or discernment, we're going to do less harm, as Pia said, to ourselves first and to all others. And it's not just someone else we're speaking with. This kind of energy, this harshness, this rudeness, this unconscionable, uncompassionate way of speaking or thinking ripples out way beyond the two people who are interacting. It ripples out into society. It ripples out into the cosmos. So the quicker we can stop ourselves from saying those words that come through our own internal thoughts, the better the equation will be by not making those mistakes, because our minds are so fast. When we want to say something to protect ourselves because we think we've been harmed or we think we've been attacked, the mind is so quick. It just wants to retaliate. It just wants to say these things in a knee-jerk reaction. We need to stop that. And the quicker we stop it, the better it will be for everyone.
And I would say, Cullen, the theme of the show, oh my gosh.
Well, I just wrote down, oh my gosh, again, and wrote down the word oops.
Everybody pay attention to this. It's just so important as we're rebirthing who we are becoming in the ascension process. This is a really, really key, important step.
Yeah, and because what you were saying, Pia, is when people respond immediately, what are they doing? They are projecting. They're projecting, which right away, which this is another word we're going to get into. But I want to go back to the boundaries piece, because, the boundaries, again, start with yourself. So it's not just about you communicating the boundaries to other people. It's about even you communicating boundaries to yourself. Like if you need a boundary to, if you're wanting to, let's just say you're wanting to change your diet or whatever, and you want to change your diet, and however you're not following whatever it is that you wanted to do, so you might want to put a boundary there. You might want to put a boundary like this. I have a boundary here. So wherever, putting the boundaries in your own creation, it begins with you and it starts with you, because even having boundaries with yourself, for yourself, with what it is that you do, putting a boundary there. Like I had to put a boundary for myself when I said, the boundary is, I absolutely refuse to judge myself. I refuse it.
Good.
That's the boundary. So it's, so, you know, like when you look in the mirror and you're like wanting to judge yourself or whatever, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But I absolutely refuse to judge myself.
And another one that goes right along with that, Cornelia, is refusing to take in what anybody else says to put you down. If they want to say something harmful and judgmental, you can put a boundary up to say that doesn't belong to me. I'm not going to take that in and react to it or get hurt by it or get angry by it. It doesn't belong to me.
Right. And so that's, you know, and this is really where it begins, is sitting down with yourself and looking at where do you want to put boundaries up so that you can create your beautiful space, that you can create a beautiful field that you're vibrating in and walking around in and emanating, and that you feel, you know, you've got your boundaries. Even the more light that we shine, the more we shine our light out, there's going to be energies that are going to come in, attacks, whatever you want to call them. And you also can, you know, put your boundaries up to protect your field, clear your field, that you broker no interference from any outside. Nothing can come into your field. The boundary is up. Nothing can come into your field and, you know, take up space, take up real estate in your mind, in your energy, and that type of boundary as well. So the boundaries begin within.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that is a great description of personal sovereignty, because if we see ourselves as sovereign beings, that means that we don't have to be affected by something outside of us. We don't have to do exactly what you just said by putting up personal boundaries. We don't have to be pushed around or influenced by something that comes from without us. And that's extremely important, because if we're following our heart knows how to lead our lives. And that dovetails in with boundaries, because if we use the heart as the ultimate expression of a boundary, we're going to be ahead of the game always, because we will know that the wisdom coming from the heart is creating a boundary that we're not going to allow others to cross.
I think this is the most important thing, is to establish your boundaries, know what they are, and work with them in your daily life. Put your boundaries up, because you're going to feel much more. This is a self-love act. It's a part of self-love when you have clear boundaries. You know, because you're communicating what's important to you. Even boundaries for yourself, like the mind wants to try to judge, it's like, nope, the boundaries, I refuse that. Because really, what is it that I really, really want? What I really, really want, right, is to be in full self-acceptance, fully self-accepted of who I am. And if I judge myself, then I'm not accepting myself. So that's the daily practice. That's the walk. That's the boundary, right?
Yep. And
absolutely.
And I think there's an additional piece to speaking about boundaries. Willpower has a lot to do with how we stick to the boundaries we create. You know, we can say one day, let's take the idea of New Year's resolutions. Someone can say, well, I'm going to be different next year. I'm going to be different tomorrow. And I'm going to stick to this new regime. Well, if we don't use our own willpower, we're not going to stick to that new regime. We're going to say, well, you know, that's a pretty tough thing I put up as an example for myself. So I think if we combine willpower with personal boundaries, we're going to strengthen the boundaries by using our own will to strengthen and cause us to keep those boundaries in place no matter what.
Always we have to remember that staying with the same, whether it works or not, is easier than change. Change is always more challenging. And that's where we have to pull in what Cullen's talking about with willpower, with the boundaries we set, because to step out of what's familiar requires effort. To stay in the same old ruts of thinking, reacting, feeling, patterns of behavior, that's easy. It doesn't require any effort at all. You fall into it because it's familiar. But to consciously make change on this ascension path and this evolutionary process requires effort. That's why we're here.
And it's it's hard work. It is hard work.
Yes, it is indeed hard work.
Absolutely.
It's a full-time job.
Yep.
It is. And it's the most important job, actually, because what we've talked about in this conversation about being true to ourselves, being confident that we know who we are and we act through that knowing who we are personally and outwardly. If we don't do that, we're lost. We don't have a center. We're not in a place of respecting our own true selves. So willpower has a lot to do with that. I mean, we could use many examples. People are trying to clean up their diets a lot in this ascension process. And Pia and I hear stories of people saying, well, I know sugar's not good for me, but
I don't eat it very often.
Someone at the Christmas party offered me Christmas cookies, and I just couldn't refuse. I had to be polite. I had to be nice. And my gosh, where is the willpower in that? It just went out the window so quickly. We need to realize that will within the boundaries is so important. And I'm saying this over again, but I think it's really important. We can't let outside influences cause us to change our minds. We can't let someone who's being kind to us, they think, by offering us something that's not good for us. It could be Christmas cookies, it could be ice cream, it could be anything that we have vowed we are no longer going to eat this because we know it's not good for our bodies. If we don't stay to that absolute decision that we made, we're going to cave into many, many things. So we've really got to be strict with ourselves about that kind of willpower and boundary making.
I don't think we talk about willpower enough. I think you pointed that out for us to really, use that right now, because that is an important aspect to our creation, what it is that we're creating. And if we don't have the willpower to make the changes, then nothing gets done. If we keep putting it off into the future, right? Because the future of love is now, not next week, not next month. It's now. It's all happening now. Using our willpower is really, really important. And I don't think we're talking about it enough.
We're certainly not acting on it enough. And talking about it's the first step to get our attention riveted to what's needed.
It's interesting. This conversation's going in a stream of thought about boundaries and willpower. And there's so many things in our shadows that we don't want to look at, that we don't want to actually pull up and closely inspect. How am I really living? What am I doing? How am I choosing to do what I do every day? And the willpower aspect of that is something that most people honestly simply don't want to look at, because it's challenging. You said a moment ago, Kornelia, it's work, it's hard work, and it is. But the benefit of that hard work is going to take us to a place where we really want to be. We really want to live in a harmonious, balanced, creative place where the essence of who we really are shines out. And if we don't set the boundaries, if we don't use willpower behind the boundaries, we're not really looking at the shadows that we need to be looking at.
No, the willpower is huge. I'm glad you brought that up. That's definitely the connector that needs to be with the boundaries, the willpower to stay true to what it is that you're really wanting to create. Stay true to yourself. That is the piece. And we need to really focus on that. So projection. What about, boy,
well, the ground for starting with projection is realizing that we are trying to get rid of our ego, because the minute we get into something that we don't like, we want to point fingers and blame somebody else. And that comes purely from ego of who we believe ourselves to be, instead of opening to other perspectives and other possibilities that other people bring to us. So projection starts the minute you want to blame somebody else for what you're feeling. You're feeling something and you want to blame somebody else, you're projecting on them.
So this is an important piece. Everybody's responsible for their own feelings, right?
Yes.
Right. And
yes.
So if they're your feelings, whatever the feelings are, whose feelings are they? Right. And so if a person gets triggered by someone, and most of the time when people get triggered, it's never about the person that is triggering you, that is doing something harmful to you, or that is intending something bad. It's just that light is triggering that shadow, so that it can be brought up to the surface. And taking that responsibility, that's where the projections come from. Is people, it's so easy for people, and I see it so much even in the light worker communities. I see it even with people that are coaches, healers, facilitators. I see the projections happening in those circles as well, right? So we're the example. We're the ones that are here that if it's not happening between us, how do you expect it to happen out there?
That is a great point. And I think maybe it even shows up more strikingly in the spiritual world, in the higher vibratory areas where people believe that because they're evolving, maybe they're a little bit more evolved than their neighbor, and maybe they've believed that they've done enough work that they're not projecting, they're teaching, or they're helping, when maybe it's not their responsibility to be doing that. So actually, this is something that I've looked at again for forever. Ashrams, intentional communities, many spiritual places, gatherings where people get together because they're like-minded or like-hearted, and they believe that they've gotten rid of all the stuff that they thought they were finished with emotionally or mentally. And guess what? This stuff shows up even in these highest echelons of spiritual societies or spiritual communities. And I've seen it over and over again. And Larkma has talked about this. They've said over and over again, humans haven't gotten rid of enough of their ego or their projected selves that isn't really part of who they really are, but they're confused about who is really doing what, the triggering or the accepting of the triggering. And it can be very confusing about projection being a good thing, as you said, Kornelia, because it brings light to the situation. But spiritual communities are not immune to this in any sense of the
I think she
word.
said the trigger brings the light to the shadow.
Yes.
Not the projection.
Well, yes, but
and
they're connected.
And then we have the choice to project.
It's basically like, I feel with I'm a catalyst. So having done so much work, inner work on myself and the work that I've done. So I'm going to, if I'm going to be with someone or in a field or in a community, if those people or that person hasn't done that amount of work, their shadow might be triggered just by my presence.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm talking about. So, it's happened. It's this year in particular, even, at my last business retreat, it happened. It happened there where the mother wound of a participant there was triggered by my presence. And what are they doing? They're projecting onto me that I'm doing something to them. This is what I mean, right? I'm doing something to you. I'm making you feel a certain kind of way.
Cullen said at the beginning of this conversation that he never expected the ascension process to have so many challenges. Mm-hmm. And you have just said a few moments ago that if we can't do it and overcome the emotional triggers, how are they going to do it in the world? I want to put together the idea that Cullen and I have been bandying back and forth to the audience that I think the more evolved we become, the more triggers we get. I think it's on purpose. I think the more evolved we are, the more triggers we get handed to us in order for us to teach by example, to demonstrate to the world how to do it differently.
The thing that's really hard, that I found was really hard, that's really hard during those times, unless, because I expected this in my spiritual retreats that I would do, that these things happen, because we're there to work on the spiritual and work on the emotional and all the things, and that's fine. Now we're in a business retreat, and this was a business retreat that was like 2 years after COVID. All of a sudden now we're getting together. We're so happy to be together. We've been with each other online the whole time, and now we're coming together, 10 of us in a house, and now the triggers are popping. And, and it's certainly not something that you thought was going to happen. What's really challenging for me was for me to be in my mastery and not to react or take it on or respond to taking it on, or doubt myself in whose this is, because especially in a group of people. So to really hold your own, like you said the word earlier, which I love, sovereignty, to be in your mastery, to be in your sovereignty and not give your power away or take it on. I know for me, this was an initiation to really stand in that and have that experience to where it's not triggering me to respond back or give my power away or feel like. The reason why I said it's hard, Pia, is because, these are your people. These are your people. And, you want to, but if they're not willing and they're projecting, then hey, right?
Well, you can take that down even smaller. This is a business group. These are your people. And then you take it down to the family level. We expect our family to be able to get through these things even more quickly. And then you take it down to a marriage, and you expect your partner to be able to do this with you and not be triggered. But the expectations need to go out the window, because in this time of ascension, we are all going to be triggered, and our work is to move beyond the trigger and do it differently. Well,
detachment is a perfect example of a way to be, because if we're triggered by someone who either didn't understand what we were saying or was wounded prior to what just happened in a current now situation, it just, I don't even know how to describe what I'm trying to get across here. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
It's that if you respond to the wound, you're more likely to, it just means you haven't done your work. If the wound is there and you get triggered to go into that wound, it's a signpost for you to say, okay, I've got more work to do here. It's not the other person, it's me.
And that stops the projection right there.
Immediately.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the responsibility of the person. Even, I mean, this is, again, communicating boundaries between each other and the work that we're all doing, right? So these
Yes.
are, again, people that know this work, that do this work in their families. But then when it came to them, right there, the projection was again pointed outward onto me, and I'm just sitting there like, I invite you to take a look at what this core wounding is bringing up for you, and really take a look at that, because that's what it is, right? And
Yes.
then it's just the blame and the judgment, you.
Mm-hmm.
So, in relationship, whether it's in the marriage or wherever it is, that's the key, to talk about, what is this bringing up for you from the past, right? What is this bringing up? It's reminding me of when my mother used to ignore me or not listen to me or whatever it is, but that you create the space for that. But in a business meeting, that is not what this is for.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want to use something really trite, but you're pointing, going, you just now really brought this up. It's trite. Everybody knows it. When you point one finger at somebody else, there's three more pointing back at yourself, which is exactly why the work is in those three fingers that are pointing back at you, not in the person you're projecting on and blaming.
Yeah. And there's another old idea that I think fits in here really well. We're usually not really mad at what we think we're mad at. If someone triggers us, if someone says something that takes us off guard or we didn't expect, that reaction is usually about something much deeper. What you said a moment ago about that, Kornelia, a deeper wound, a deeper trauma. And I think people are too quick to react, thinking that what someone said is really the center of what they didn't like or what offended them. But it's not. It's the trigger is the surface trigger of opening up something usually much deeper, much more wounding, from childhood, a parallel life, another relationship. It doesn't matter where it came from. But that old adage about people are usually not really mad at what they think they're mad at, I think is a truism.
It's just, even in my group, just this week, someone there was triggered by a word that someone said in the group, and they were triggered by that word, but the person didn't at all mean anything by it, right? So they were feeling triggered. So instead of the person taking responsibility, what is this bringing up for me? What is coming up for me? Because this person isn't out to harm you. This person isn't out to, do something to you. But she was coming at it from that place. Like, I'm wounded because this person is trying to attack me. It wasn't like that at all. And so this is what I mean by, it's happening in highly advanced circles where people are projecting and not taking responsibility, which is making me think that, maybe this is something that I need to be, talking about more, putting maybe a course together or something, because people are doing that. They're definitely projecting. So and you know what else is so quick for them to do is exit the relationship. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm like, just, and I see that a lot in spiritual communities where it's like, oh, I don't need that. I don't need that. Done. Bye. I'm out of here, kind of thing.
Absolutely. Instead of the work to move through what's causing your own triggers, engaging in blame so much that you want to get out of the whole situation.
I said that, I said, hey, we're here to come together and unite. Every person that's here in this group, every person that's here is coming from the highest intentions of love to support each other, to thrive in unity. I can tell you that every person that's here is coming from that place. If you get triggered, there's always going to be something from the past that is coming up, because every person here would give you the shirt off their back.
Absolutely right, Cornelia. Very, very well said.
You know, so we can talk it out. Why can't we sit down and talk it out? If we can't do it here, how do you expect it to happen out here? We're the examples. And no matter what I said to this person, I said all these things I'm saying to you now, no matter what I said, she left the group.
Wow.
So that takes us back again to the more evolved we are, the more triggers we get to handle. And I mean, get to handle, because they slam us sometimes.
So I had quite a few people leave the group this year, quite a few people. And I noticed every time when one would leave, I would be, oh, too bad, you know, because I love that person. I love that person. You're magnificent. You're a wonderful person. I love you. I brought you in here. And now, you know, so as I was seeing them leave, right, it every time someone would leave, it would jerk me. I would feel a jerk, like a, you know. And now, when after the other day, all the conversations, I even went over my boundaries that I set for myself, that on Sunday I'm not going to do any social media. And then because of that little communication that was going on, I jumped in and even went against my own boundaries, that no social media, I'm on social media. What are you doing, Kornelia? Right? So, but after she left the group, I had nothing left. There was no jerk. There was nothing. So I was completely great. Fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we do. But there is a sadness that if the person was willing to stay and even maybe have a conversation with you, the leader of the conference, or the strength and the courage to actually talk to the person that triggered them, if they could have put that hurt or that immediate reaction away until the end of the conference, or at least until a break happened or lunch or something, if they had done that, probably there would have been a resolution to what happened. But
most people don't have the courage to do that. They basically, what is the word? Cowered out.
And Cornelia, that has to do with a term that Cullen has written about and talked about for years, and that's bad training. We have been trained into a culture of separation. You need to focus on what's important to you. You need to speak your truth. You need to do all this separating stuff instead of, let me share what I'm thinking with you. Let me share my perspective. It's all about me, me, me. And if you do something that's outside of me, that's not okay. And so the separation grows because of the projection, the lack of boundaries, all the things we're talking about create more separation. And as you said a minute ago, we're here to bring unity. That's our job.
Yes. And if we can't do it within our groups or in our circles, then how do we expect unity to be created on this planet?
Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think what we have to get beyond is hurt feelings.
Yes.
Because the person you're describing, even though we weren't there, we're getting the feeling of what you're explaining to us about what happened. The person went into the place of hurt feelings. And whether that was a genuine situation or not isn't important. You said that the person that used the word had no intention of causing a problem, but the person who received that single word got their feelings hurt.
And can I say something else about that? The person that used the word even apologized to the entire group and said, I apologize if I offended anyone. And it still didn't get received. So this is an important piece to know, that there's sometimes there's outside agendas going on. Maybe who knows what the whole thing is, but these are the challenges. This is all part of our challenge right now, where we're being challenged. And I've been seeing this this year, and I've been in it. So this has all been part of my leadership training as a sovereign being, right? Because I'm having to communicate the boundary. Hey, this is how we do things here, and let's come together and let's talk things out. I always believe that we can sit down and talk anything out with those boundaries, that let's open up a space. If you're wounded or something is coming up for you that's being brought up from your past, or me, if it's me that's triggered, then hold the space. And what does it remind you of? That kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think this also in this discussion has to do with duality, because we're talking about two very different points of view. In the example that you've given us, someone said something that had no harmful energy behind it, but another person took it as a harmful attack on them. That is a dualistic situation where two separate energies clashed, where there didn't need to be a clash.
So that takes us back to the concept that we need to remember the power of words. And if we have spoken something that proved to be hurtful to someone, say, let me rephrase that. I want to say it a different way. And take our thoughts around the block when they're powered by our emotions before we use those words in a heightened tension situation, so that we don't use something that's unkind or cruel or unthinking.
I can tell you that the words that were used were not, there wasn't anything that was unkind about it. There wasn't anything. It was the person in the group said, I want to talk to all the loyal people that have been showing up to my events, and use the word loyal. And then the people that haven't shown up to the events now feel left out, that person. So do you see what I mean? And it's the same thing with a catalyst of being in your presence. You're in the presence that's going to activate and trigger the shadow of someone else in your beingness. And you can just
my hope for the person who left your group is that that person will go home and think about, where in that life do I feel disloyal? Have I been accused of disloyalty? Why is disloyalty a trigger for me?
Or has someone been disloyal to me?
Or has someone been disloyal to me?
That would have been the responsible. That would be the responsible thing to do. Yeah. But some of those people that do things like that, they feel like, oh, I'm claiming my power. I stood up. I spoke my voice. I did, who knows what it is they're saying. It would be ideal if they took responsibility. Where's the disloyalty showing up? Have I been disloyal, right? Because that's
if the person doesn't know where the disloyalty is coming from and can't access it, just say, I'll think about that and drop it and then go think about it.
Yeah.
Well, no matter what, if the loyalty was the piece, it's going to, on a karmic perspective, come back again in another relationship, in another group, in another circle. It will rear its head against someone.
Absolutely.
Bring it back to you.
Yeah, there's another possible aspect to what you've explained about this group situation. It's possible that the person that was offended, that left the group, was a teaching example for all the rest of you. It's possible that this happened on purpose so that the rest of you who stayed and watched what happened, maybe it was an energetic opening for all of the rest of you to look at this and go, oh my gosh, here we are again. Oh my gosh, look what happened. How can I use this in my life to not project or not react? So it looks like this one person was really having a hard time, had to say, this isn't working for me, I'm leaving, out of hurt feelings, anger, frustration, whatever. But maybe that person helped all the rest of you, and maybe it was worth it in the long run that it happened, so that all the rest of you would have a deeper understanding of this particular aspect of human relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I do believe that in this week when we meet on Thursday, I will bring it up and we can talk about it during the meeting. So that will be good. And for me, it's multidimensional, multi-purposeful because it has so many aspects to it. For me, it was really an opportunity to, like I said, be in my leadership and bring my higher consciousness and wisdom, my humanity to it in leadership, and try to have conversations with people. What's the right thing to do here? And do it in a loving way, and do it in, hey, can we consider this? What about this? This person didn't try to, that kind of thing. And we're talking through text. This is like, can we get on a call? My God, it's like, can we, and again, people don't want to take the time. They just want to rush through everything and exit out of the relationship, drop the relationship or whatever. Oh, this doesn't resonate with me or whatever that, these spiritually communities just throw out these words. So it's all very interesting. All I can say, this year 2022 for me personally has been a year of initiation and challenge, and it's been no joke. When I moved into 2022, I thought, wow, yeah, 22, because I was born on the 22nd, so I'm good. I know this vibration very well, and I thought, I had this handled. But I can tell you, boy, did I get a run for my money. It has been one challenge after another for me to really choose life.
Well, congratulations, Kornelia. The more challenges you're getting, the more you're evolving.
So yeah, I know that coming in 2023, I'm definitely claiming creating after this very challenging year. I'm more in my power, I'm more in my sovereignty, and I'm more in my strength so that I can handle whatever else is coming next, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what we're rebirthing ourselves into.
That's a great,
to be able to do that.
That's a great recipe to move forward.
Yes, absolutely.
That is, yeah. So here we are. It's been an hour. It's been, again, very rich, juicy conversation. And let's tell everyone, Pia and Cullen, where they can find out more information about how the session work that you're doing, or any other programs or anything that you're offering right now.
Well, we have two websites.
They are LARKMA, LAARKMAA.com. And LARKMA, our Pleiadian friends, are offering right now personal sessions to look into people's triggers, to help them understand how to move beyond them. They're offering that as a specialty right in this current energy. But we have our books on there. We have our Oracle card deck on there, which is amazing. The personal session information, lots and lots of information available. And the other site is piaorleane.com. And there's some pretty interesting stuff on that one too.
Good. And so what do you want to leave everyone with today? Because would you believe that we're going to see each other in 3 weeks? I looked at the calendar.
Yep, it is. Yep, absolutely. Right. On purpose.
And it will be 2023.
That's right.
It'll be 2023. However, I'm deep in winter in January of 2023. And for me, the way that I see the new year, it begins in the spring, in the astrology, right? You too.
Absolutely. That's true for us as well.
So basically, the way I'm looking at it is I still have another quarter
yeah.
of 2022, basically the remnants of that, bringing it into 2023 and all the lessons learned. Because right now, for me, I'm looking at tying up loose ends and completing things and cleaning things out, and getting rid of things and looking at all the hard lessons learned. I mean, I also had a severe health challenge this year that I dealt with. There were a lot of things, but again, it was all to choose life, to choose sovereignty, to choose my divinity, to choose my humanity, and to choose my life creation. And now I want to have some time in January to organize and really listen to what's coming, what's next. Because we've even got the Mars retrograde still till mid January. We've got Mercury retrograde coming. And so there's still time to, really clean out and revisit things, and then look at what wants to be birthed new, what comes next. I'm excited about that.
And looking at those things that is so appropriate during retrograde periods like Mercury retrograde and Mars retrograde. That retrograde energy is an opportunity to go inside and look at what's working backwards that you don't want to do anymore. It's a great opportunity for that. So what I would leave everybody with is we're moving into a holiday season where lots of patterns are familiar, and we have the opportunity, because of Venus's influence of rebirthing, to not be complacent, but to say, what do we want to rebirth in ourselves and for the world? And make some choices about boundaries, projections, willpower, separation, unity. Make some conscious choices about all those things, and respond by doing our own work with our own triggers and rebirthing ourselves into our real selves.
That's beautiful. Cullen, would you like to add anything?
Well, I would just say that through this conversation we've had today, we've talked about all the challenges that we've had to deal with in this year of 2022, but actually it's been 2017, 2018, all the way up to 2022. And I think the positive part of this is we have been challenged, but let's look at what happened through those challenges. We've grown. We have evolved because of the challenges that many of us have turned into opportunities for growth. So what I would end with is, it's been a roller coaster. There's no doubt about that. Yet we've learned a tremendous amount about ourselves and the world and the universe. And I believe that 2023 will bring us even more wisdom that's going to enable us to grow and move into a higher evolved stage that we can look forward to. So I think 2023, even though it will have setbacks and even though it will have challenges, I think it's going to be a different energy than the past 5 years.
I do too. I feel like all of us are now in position. We've been getting ready to be in this position for the next unveiling of whatever is getting ready to happen on the world stage, of all the crimes that are going to be revealed one by one by one by one by one. And we are in the position to then be in support of the awakening collective, the people that are the sleepers, the people that are going to see what has been happening here for a long time, and what it is that we are releasing and letting go of through all of those challenges in all the different areas in the world that we're all a part of, right? And
yes,
yeah. So yep. I think we're just all really being prepared to hold our ground, to shine our light, and be ready to support those people that are going to need our help. That's going to be the thing. And what I want to leave you with is, be kind to yourself, be good to yourself, and get some rest. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So it was wonderful to be with you two today. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for tuning in and listening. We'll be back on January the 3rd. We wish you a wonderful holiday season, a peaceful holiday season, and we'll see you again in 2023. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye for now.